welcome to my channel, Steve Infinity. In this video, I just wanted to quickly talk about, I guess, I don't know what you'd really call it, but like bot versions of people, or like, you know, like people who aren't quite as like sovereign and real in the sense of how we normally think of and perceive as real. You know, especially if you are someone like on these sort of, you know, like awakening, you know, spiritual type journeys. You know, it can be even more of a case where like a lot of people around you are these, you know, like bot version type people. You know, like traditionally maybe they were like classed as more like, you know, demonic type people or what have you, whatever you want to call them, as a way to like, you know, test you or trigger you or to hold you back, you know, to siphon from you. You know, there's a range of rhymes and reasons as to, you know, their purpose and their intentions. You know, so especially on these sort of journeys, you know, especially if you have like family members or close friends or what have you that can, you know, sometimes seem a bit all right and okay, and then other times, you know, they may say or do things that, you know, kind of trigger like a response out of you, or like trying to get under your skin, or, you know, trying to guilt trip you or shame you, or, you know, trying to like latch on to you and your energy. You know, sometimes these sort of things aren't just, you know, them being a dick or like them just being a bit weird. Sometimes it's just literally they're like an AI bot, almost just like being programmed to do that, to gauge a certain reaction from you. You know, so some people aren't exactly sovereign or like real in the sense of we think how they're, you know, fully making fully conscious choices and decisions, and some are kind of more just like, you know, running off automatic responses and programming. You know, kind of similar to, you know, when you interact with AI and such, you know, you input the information and then a response is bounced back at you. Like some people kind of operate in that way, that rather than them coming up with their own conscious sovereign response, sometimes it's just their programming just blurting an automatic response back to you depending on like your energy and your interaction. But then it, you know, it's so advanced that it has that sense of feeling real to, you know, create this illusionary, you know, holographic virtual type reality we live in. You know, it makes it feel real, makes it feel like you're immersed, you know, with these real people in a real reality. But a lot of the time it's just kind of like programming being mirrored and projected back at you, you know, based on your own like energy and intentions and subconscious thoughts and beliefs and programming, you know, then kind of goes into their programming, and then they spit out like an automated response rather than them having like a conscious sovereign response. You know, so you could almost like think of them as like super advanced like AI bot type things. You know, at the moment, you know, we can talk to AI and stuff, and it's getting so advanced that it can, you know, create like people, you know, and it moves and looks kind of like a person talking. You know, it's still like a little bit easy to tell the difference, but it's getting to a point of being difficult to tell the difference between, say, an AI generated video of a human or an actual video of a human. So if you kind of, you know, apply that to real life, some people are more like sovereign conscious beings, and some are just kind of like, you know, AI generated by our own minds to look and perceive as real, but they're just kind of giving automated prompted responses back based on, you know, what's going on with you and your scenario and what their intentions and purpose is. You know, sometimes they're just harmless and neutral, or sometimes they're there to, you know, help you grow by, you know, triggering certain areas for you to overcome. And sometimes they're a bit more like demonic in a sense of trying to deter you off your path and keep you held back and keep you latched into them, almost as a way of they're like subconsciously siphoning off your sovereign conscious energy, because the more that they siphon that energy from you, the higher chance they have of becoming sovereign and conscious themselves. You know, so it's kind of, you know, a little vampiric in that way. You know, and it's also, you know, the whole vibe of, you know, Jesus and such of being, you know, forgive them, they know not what they do, is in that sense of, you know, because they aren't fully conscious and sovereign. And sometimes as well, you know, they're borrowing, or like, you know, they have the essence of someone you may know or someone who could be, you know, sovereign or something aspect in another way, so they may be in heaven or what have you, but they like can use their essence almost as like a costume or a mask. And then, you know, say they do something to trigger you or annoy you, and then if you kind of take all that negative energy out on the essence of the person, it can not only like, you know, be directed towards the bot version, but their real version, wherever they are, you know, whether they within you know, you, heaven, like wherever their real essence is existing. Sometimes, you know, that negative energy can be like sent to and affecting them, even if, and they may not even be consciously aware of the interaction you're having with their bot version. So that's why it can be, you know, such a good and clean energy way of trying to have that forgiveness and not holding on to things and kind of letting it go in that sense, because sometimes they are just like bots there to trigger a reaction out of you and to trigger that negative energy and to trigger you to send out that negative energy, or for you to be in a negative energy yourself. You know, it's all like part and parcel. So, you know, so if you have noticed, you know, people in your life or what have you, almost, you know, saying little remarks or comments to you in a way that it's like they're purposely trying to get under your skin, that can be, you know, a good sign. Or if, you know, their moods and emotions and stuff seem a bit conflicting from day to day or moment, you know, that can be another good sign. You know, when they're don't have that consistent, sovereign, independent sort of energy and essence, and a kind of, you know, a bit flip-floppy or a bit chaotic or a bit aggressive or a bit triggering, or into certain little ways that just kind of ting at you, you know, that can be a sign that it's more just kind of like a generated bot version that you're dealing with, you know, for your own growth or for, you know, a block on your path or what have you. You know, another good way to think about it, I feel, as well, is like the idea of like backdrop people from the Dolores Cannon books, you know, of kind of the idea of, you know, they're here to fill up the experience we're having and to help create and enhance the experience we're having. But, you know, sometimes they do get a bit angry or latch on or what have you, because your energy as well can help, as I was mentioning before, to like enhance their own experience. Because even though they aren't like real in the sense of what we might think of as being real, they're still experiencing the experience themselves, and then that gives them enough experience and opportunity eventually to then become like a sovereign conscious being themselves. And so the more they interact and mirror you or, you know, engage with you, the higher chance they then have of kind of like siphoning that energy to become real themselves. And so, you know, sometimes as well, you know, if you cut these sort of versions or whatever out of your life or what have you, or if, you know, they just kind of become null and void from your reality or what have you, they can almost, you know, their essence or energy in a way is almost just like recycled into, you know, becoming like another bot or another version, or, you know, so I guess in times that can almost create like a sense of panic for them to like latch on even more, to be able to like stay in your reality, to keep siphoning that energy to become, you know, real and sovereign themselves. So, you know, just food for thought, you know, just things to be conscious and aware of when you're, you know, on these journeys and interacting with people and using your own discernment and stuff, you know, and kind of taking care of your own energy and what have you, that, you know, these sort of things are, you know, are a thing in our reality, and our reality is a lot more, you know, complex and complicated than initially meets, you know, the human eye. But yeah, so I thought, you know, I'd just make a quick little video about that whole, you know, premise. And, you know, especially just because if you have had some, you know, bizarre interactions with people on your journey, particularly, you know, people that are close to you or what have you, that, you know, this can be a sort of thing that does go on, and especially in these sort of, you know, awakening type journeys or what have you, what you want to call it, you know, and that has been spoken about, you know, in code and not so coded all throughout history and time, you know, like by people such as like Jesus and what have you. So it's, you know, it's a thing-a-ling, and I feel like we're all becoming a bit more open and aware to it. And, you know, with things like us developing AI and stuff now, makes it a lot easier for us to kind of conceptualize how such an idea can work and can be created. Like, if us humans have already created AI as advanced as it is, it's not very hard to imagine that, you know, another race or species or what have you has created this matrix that we live in that is just slightly more advanced than, you know, the stuff that we've developed yet. Then they've, you know, kind of created this matrix for us to exist in through these sort of, you know, advanced technology type interactions. So yeah, just some food for thought, and to, you know, give you some reassurance that if you have noticed some, you know, odd or weird things with certain people that kind of makes you think like, what is going on here? Like, you're not crazy, you're not alone, and it's, you know, all part of the parcel and stuff of, you know, what we're all individually and collectively awakening to. And, you know, you don't need to have like fear or like anger or too much, you know, of that lower, denser, negative type energy. You know, just kind of accepting and digesting what is happening and taking a more, you know, cool, calm, collected approach, and kind of, you know, removing yourself as necessary to protect, you know, your own sovereignty and your own energy and your own path and journey forward, without being, you know, latched onto and sidetracked and distracted by all these like bot type energies. All right, well, I'll leave this one there for now. Sending you so much peace, love, light, and blessings as always. Bye.